Story number 1. When I was 12, my mom had just started trusting me enough to stay home alone. Looking back, I wish she hadn't. We lived in what most people would call a quiet, safe little town. The kind with tree-lined streets, big front yards, and neighbors who actually say hello. A place where nothing bad ever really happened, or so we thought. That sense of peace? It was a lie. A mask. And the night I was left home alone, I saw what lived underneath it. My parents had always believed we were protected by the calm of this town. That nothing could ever reach us here. That's why they started leaving me home on the weekends when they went out with friends. They were still young themselves, still holding on to the thrill of late nights and road trips. My sister wasn't home that night either. She was away, at a friend's, I think. So it was just me. Just me, and something else. Before they left, my parents gave me some money for pizza and told me they'd be back late. My mom smiled like it was just another normal night. But it wasn't. From the moment the door closed behind them, something felt off. The silence was different. Heavy. Like the air inside the house was watching me. At first, I brushed it off. I turned on the TV, ordered the pizza, and told myself I was being ridiculous. I was 12, I wanted to prove I could handle it. But something outside didn't want me to. Something was watching the house. And it wasn't human. It was shaping up to be the perfect night for a 12-year-old kid. House to myself. Pizza for dinner. Video games until my eyes gave out. I was deep into my third playthrough of Nightfire on the PS2, some old-school James Bond game I used to be obsessed with. Back then, I thought I was unstoppable. No school the next day. No parents to tell me to turn it off. Just me and the TV glow. When I finally beat the last level, I figured it was time to order that pizza. There used to be a place just a few blocks away, Johnny's. It was kind of a family tradition. My parents ordered from there all the time. Place has been shut down for years now, and sometimes, I wonder if that's got something to do with what happened that night. I called in and asked for a regular pie. At that age, I could take down 3 slices easy. My mom told me before she left, wrap whatever's left in foil and put it in the fridge. So while I waited, I swapped discs and loaded up another game. I remember the house was dead quiet, except for the faint hum of the PlayStation and the distant hum of wind outside. I didn't think much of it then, but something in that silence didn't feel normal. Then, the doorbell rang. I grabbed the $20 bill my parents left on the counter and rushed downstairs. My mom told me to tip $4. For a 3-block drive, it was a decent tip. Not bad for back then. But when I opened the door, I froze. The guy standing there wasn't what I expected. He looked like he was in his 30s, maybe older. He had these deep lines in his face, like he hadn't slept in days. His beard was long, thick, and honestly, kind of disgusting. Like he hadn't washed it in weeks. There was grease on his shirt. His eyes were bloodshot. Wild. Something about him felt off. Way off. The guy also wore thick glasses and a black trucker's hat pulled low over his eyes. Something about him just screamed, off. I handed him the 20 and asked for the exact change. As he passed me the pizza box and started counting bills, he suddenly paused. His eyes flicked up at me, then drifted past my shoulder, into the house. Then he asked, "You alone here?" My stomach dropped. I knew that was a weird question. A creepy one. My parents had always drilled it into me, never give strangers personal information. Always be cautious. Always be smart. But I panicked. I said something stupid, something I thought sounded clever at the time. My parents are on their way home. It wasn't exactly a lie. But it wasn't convincing either. I think he knew. The empty driveway said enough. No adult in sight. Just a kid answering the door with shaky confidence. He handed me the change without another word, then turned and walked back down the driveway. I shut the door quickly and locked it behind me. Trying to shake off the weirdness, I brought the pizza into the kitchen. I ate about 3 slices, just like I always did, and wrapped the rest in foil before sliding the box into the fridge, just like Mom told me. Then I went back upstairs and loaded up Agent Under Fire, another James Bond game. It wasn't as fun as Nightfire, but it kept me distracted. Hours passed. The clock on my nightstand said it was a little after 11 p.m. when I heard the doorbell ring again. My first thought was that my parents were finally home. I jumped up and hurried downstairs, already calling out as I reached the door. Mom? Dad? But it wasn't their voice that answered. Instead, a deep, unfamiliar voice came through the door. Hey. I need help. The man outside said he needed to use a phone. That was all. Please, he said again. I just need to use your phone. I didn't recognize the voice. It definitely wasn't one of my parents' friends. It wasn't a neighbor either. It was low, almost hoarse, too calm. I swallowed hard and replied through the door, "Who is this?" He didn't answer the question. He just repeated it again, same tone, same words. I just need to use a phone. I stood frozen. My fingers tingled. My body didn't want to move. I knew better than to open that door. Everything inside me screamed that it was a trap. I didn't even want to look through the window, not because I was being cautious, but because I was scared. Really scared. Instead, I turned and started walking up the stairs, stairs that sat directly across from the front door. And that's when I heard it. A loud bang on the door. Not a knock. Not a polite tap. It was a desperate, jarring hit, like a fist slamming into the wood. Then he spoke again. Louder this time. Wait. Please. I need help. My heart skipped. He'd seen me. He was watching through the thin glass window at the top of the door. That's how he knew I was walking away. I turned around. The porch was dark, but I could still make out the outline of a head and shoulders standing there. He didn't move. Didn't wave. Just stood completely still, staring through the glass. Even without seeing his eyes, I knew. He was looking right at me. I ran. I bolted upstairs, straight to my parents' room. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone when I grabbed it from the nightstand. There was only one house phone upstairs, and it was in their room. I didn't know my dad's number by heart, so I dialed the only one I could remember. My mom's cell. She answered after a few rings, her voice slightly slurred, like maybe she'd had a few glasses of wine. "Hey, sweetie," she said. I could barely speak. "There's someone at the door," I whispered. "He's asking to come in." That one sentence must have sobered my mom up instantly. Her tone changed. Instantly. Gone was the calm, half-distracted voice, replaced by something sharp and alert. She sounded wide awake now. Alarmed. "What do you mean someone's at the door?" she asked, her voice louder, firmer. She started asking me questions fast. First, did you answer him? Did you let him know you were home? I didn't want to lie. I couldn't. So I told her the truth. "Yes," I said. "He saw me." She went quiet for a second. I could hear the weight of that answer settle in her breathing. Then she asked, "Do you have any idea why someone would know you were home alone?" That's when it clicked. The pizza guy. I remembered his question, "You alone here?" and the way he stared past me into the house. The way his eyes didn't leave mine when I lied. I told her. I said, "The pizza guy asked if I was alone." Her tone shifted again, now it was fear. She was connecting the dots just like I was. And just then, the doorbell rang again. Once. Then a second time. It wasn't frantic, but it was persistent. He was still out there. He wasn't leaving. I started to panic on the phone. "Mom, he won't go away," I whispered. "He's still at the door." "Okay," she said, trying to stay calm for me. "Go into our room. Lock the door. Do it now. Stay put." I shut the bedroom door, turned the lock, and backed away. My hands were sweating. My legs were trembling. My mom told me to keep her on the phone while she used my dad's phone to call the police. In the background, I could hear them rushing out of wherever they were, probably some restaurant. The sounds of dishes, chatter, and clinking glasses faded as they stepped outside to get better signal. "It's okay," she said over and over again. "We're getting help. Just stay where you are." The worst part? It was summer. All the windows in the house were cracked open to let the breeze in. And that meant I could still hear everything. Every creak on the porch. Every step on the gravel. And possibly, he could hear me too. Through the cracked window in my parents' room, I suddenly heard it. The soft, creaking click of the backyard gate opening. It was subtle, almost careful. The way you'd open something when you didn't want anyone to hear it. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear and whispered, "I think someone just opened the gate." My mom's voice stayed low but urgent. "Stay quiet," she said. "Stay in the room. Don't turn on any lights. Don't make a sound." I nodded silently, even though she couldn't see me. Then I asked her, almost in a whisper, "What if he tries to come in through the den window?" She cut me off quickly. "Just stop talking. Please. Just wait for the police." She stayed on the phone with me, giving me quiet updates about how far away the officers were. Telling me again and again to stay still. Stay quiet. Don't speak unless I had to. And for a second. Just for a moment. I felt myself beginning to calm down. I told myself it was going to be okay. The cops were on the way. My door was locked. I just had to hold out. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Not outside. Inside. The creak of the floorboards downstairs. Slow, deliberate. The sound of someone wandering, exploring. I clutched the phone and whispered, "He's inside. Someone's inside the house." I heard my mom scream, not at me, but into the other phone, the one she had dialed the police with. I don't know what exactly she said, but it was something like, "He's in the house. Get there now." Then she snapped back to me, "Get under the bed. Now. Hide." And I did. I crawled under their bed and curled up tight, clutching the phone like it was the only thing keeping me alive. I was 12 years old. Alone. And there was a man inside my house. The only thing between me and him was a thin, wooden bedroom door. With a cheap little lock that rattled every time the wind blew. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Coming up the stairs. Slow. Deliberate. The staircase was right next to my sister's room and mine, near the start of the hall. My parents' room was all the way at the end. The footsteps reached the top. And then stopped. For a few seconds, everything went quiet. No creaks. No floorboard groans. I realized, he must have been inside my room. Or my sister's. Searching. My mom whispered into the phone, "The police are close. They're almost there. They'll force their way in. Just stay still. Don't move." Then, the footsteps came back. This time, heading down the hall. Toward me. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. The steps stopped right outside the bedroom door. And then the doorknob rattled. Soft at first. Just a test. Like they were hoping it would turn. Hoping it would magically open. Then came another attempt. And another. Still locked. And then a knock. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just this slow, gentle knock. 3 taps. But whoever was on the other side didn't say anything. Not a word. They tried the doorknob one last time. And then footsteps. Walking away. Back down the hall. Back down the stairs. Fading, slowly, into the house. I stayed completely still under the bed, barely even breathing. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I didn't even whisper into the phone. I was frozen. Finally, my mom whispered, "The police are there. Stay where you are. They're coming in now." I expected to hear a door kicked in. Glass shatter. Something loud. But instead, it was just the sound of heavy footsteps, multiple people, storming through the house. And then a loud voice shouted my name. "Your name. This is the police." I heard them coming up the stairs. Their boots hitting hard and fast. My mom said, "It's okay. You can answer them. Unlock the door." I crawled out from under the bed, unlocked the door with shaking hands, and opened it. 2 officers were standing there, flashlights drawn, guns holstered. I could see 2 more downstairs moving through the kitchen. They hadn't needed to break the door in. Because the back door? It had been left wide open. Worse. The sliding window in the den was also opened, all the way. That's how he got in. After the officers cleared the house, I had to sit down and tell them everything. Every detail. Every sound. My parents were still on the phone, listening the entire time. And when I brought up the pizza guy, all the officers exchanged a look. They didn't say much at first. Just asked for the name of the pizzeria. Asked what he looked like. But I could tell they were thinking the same thing I was. That guy had come back. My parents were already on their way home when everything happened. By the time they got there, only 2 police officers were still at the house, finishing the report. When I mentioned the pizza guy and how he asked if I was alone, the officers included that detail in the report. They said they'd conduct an investigation. The next night, my parents took me back to Johnny's Pizzeria. They told me to watch closely, and point him out if I saw him. But I didn't. He wasn't there. So my dad walked up to the counter and asked the manager which employee matched the description I gave. The older guy behind the counter looked a little uncomfortable. He said that sounded like Phil, but that Phil was currently out on a delivery. My mom explained everything, how I was home alone, what happened, how someone broke in, and asked if he was sure it was Phil. That's when the manager suddenly got defensive. He shook his head and said there was no way Phil would do something like that. Then he told us we needed to leave the restaurant. My parents weren't having it. They caused a scene. Right there in the middle of the pizzeria. Said they'd never spend another dime there and told the manager they hoped the police would figure out exactly what happened. We walked out and got in the car. But we didn't drive off. Instead, we waited. We stayed parked in the lot for almost an hour. My parents wanted to see this Phil for themselves. Maybe ask him a few questions. Maybe just look him in the eye. But he never came back. Not once. Eventually, we gave up and drove home. But my parents believed, still believe, that the manager tipped him off. Probably called or texted him and told him not to come back. At least not while we were still waiting. In the days that followed, my parents contacted a couple lawyers. But none of them took the case. Too little evidence. Nothing would hold up in court. They told us it would be a waste of time and money. And just like that, nothing came of it. We never went back to that pizzeria. Ever. And for a long time afterward, my parents didn't leave me home alone. Not even during the day. Not even for a quick trip to the store. That night changed everything. Even now, years later, I still think it was the pizza guy. Or maybe someone who worked with him. Someone who knew I'd be alone. Who knew when to come back. And I always wonder, what would have happened if I had opened that door? Story number 2. When I was a teenager, my parents and I moved from California to a secluded part of North Idaho. They had just retired and built their dream home, deep in the back country. No neighbors in sight. Just forest. Endless, dense forest that backed right up to national parkland and miles of paper mill logging grounds. The house was massive. 2 stories, a full gym, a bar and pool room, even a legit movie theater in the basement. It was the kind of place people dream about. Remote. Quiet. Perfect. Or so it seemed. At the time, I was dating my high school girlfriend. One night, while my parents were out on a dinner date downtown, I invited her over to hang out and watch a movie. We were completely alone. I cracked open a beer, underage, sure, but figured no one would care. Then we headed down to the basement theater to watch Gladiator. Everything started out normal. We joked around. Talked during the previews. Settled in. But somewhere around the midpoint of the movie, maybe close to midnight, something changed. And I don't mean on the screen. I suddenly got this intense feeling, like my whole body had gone stiff. My chest tightened. My breath caught in my throat. It was the unmistakable wave of panic. Like something wasn't right. Like I was in danger, even though I couldn't see anything. My heart started pounding. I tried to ignore it. I really did. But I couldn't stop glancing behind us, at the tall, uncovered windows lining the back wall of the theater room. Windows that looked straight out into the forest. Into complete, pitch-black nothingness. I didn't want to freak out my girlfriend, so I kept the feeling to myself. In fact, things even got a little heated between us during the movie. But the whole time, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching us. I didn't know where the feeling came from, but I knew. When the movie ended, I walked her upstairs and out to her car. The house was dead quiet again. She drove off, and I started to turn back inside. Then I remembered, I'd left the bar, pool room, and movie room lights on. So, I went back downstairs. First, I turned off the lights in the movie room. Then I paused. My eyes drifted to the large window overlooking the backyard. That's when I saw him. A man standing just outside. He looked homeless. Wild hair, filthy clothes, like he hadn't showered in weeks. But what froze me in place wasn't how rough he looked. It was his expression. The biggest, creepiest smile I've ever seen. Wide, staring eyes that looked completely deranged. And in his hand was a knife. He was gently tapping it against the glass, over and over again. At first, I thought I was hallucinating. I slowly backed away and headed to the barroom to shut off the rest of the lights. That room had a sliding glass door that also faced the woods. I flipped the switch, and froze. The man calmly walked from the window to the door, still smiling, still staring. At this point, we were less than a foot apart, just the glass between us. He didn't try to get in. He didn't move at all. He just watched me. I swallowed hard, turned, and went upstairs without saying a word. Right then, my parents walked through the front door. I told them, I think I need to go to the psych ward or something. I swear I just saw a guy with a knife watching me outside. My mom went pale. My dad's eyes narrowed. Without a word, he went straight to the gun safe, grabbed his rifle, and stormed out to check the property. I asked my mom what was going on. She whispered, "There have been a few break-ins in the area, a guy wandering through the woods trying to get into homes." The description you gave matches exactly. The police were called, but they didn't find anything. No signs of entry. No footprints. Just cold, black woods. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. That night, as I tried to sleep, I heard a light tapping beneath me. My bedroom was on the second floor, directly above the movie room. It sounded like metal, gently tapping glass. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. The tapping lasted for hours. Night after night, week after week. Sometimes it would stop completely. Other times, I'd wake up at exactly 3 a.m. and hear it faintly again. I even thought I heard footsteps on the roof one night. I checked every window, every corner of the house. But I never saw anyone. Still, the feeling wouldn't leave me. I was being stalked. Watched. Then winter came. My parents had to go out of town for a few days. They were still nervous about what had happened. Before they left, they gave me a shotgun. Just in case, they said. We also had a big Rottweiler. The sweetest dog you'd ever meet. Totally silent, unless something was really there. One night, while I was home alone, I heard slow crunching footsteps in the snow outside. Heavy. Deliberate. The dog stood up, ears perked. He growled low and deep at the front door. Then barked, ferocious, loud, and non-stop. He only ever did that when he saw something real. I stayed silent. I didn't want whoever was out there to know I was home. I didn't move. Then came the knock. Slow. Hollow. Taunting. I didn't answer. That night, I slept with the shotgun right next to me. Door locked tight. Blinds drawn. The dog lay quietly at my feet. Morning came, and I went outside. What I saw made my stomach drop. Fresh footprints. Human footprints circled the entire house. They stopped at every window, like someone was searching for me. I followed the prints around the property. They led into the forest. I followed for maybe half a mile. Then the tracks began to zigzag. Veer off. Loop back. It was like whoever made them was trying to throw me off their trail. Something told me to turn back. I didn't want to push my luck. That night, the tapping returned, louder than before. I knew it was him. I unlocked my door. Grabbed my shotgun. Stepped out onto the second-story deck. I flipped on the fog lights, flooding the backyard with light. There he was. Same man. Same smile. Same dead, unblinking eyes. And in his hand, again, the knife. He stared right at me, like he could see straight through me. I raised the shotgun and shouted. "If you don't leave, I'll put one right through you." He didn't move. Didn't flinch. Just stared. Grinning. I fired a warning shot into the air. Finally, I got a reaction. He staggered. Then slowly backed into the woods, still facing me. That's when I decided it was time to unleash the dog. I sprinted downstairs. Threw open the sliding door. Let the dog loose. He bolted into the forest like a black missile. Barking. Snarling. I'd never seen him that aggressive. He wore a shock collar, so he couldn't go far. But I like to think he chased that man off for good. Because after that night, I never saw him again. Story number 3. This all happened during spring break, March of 2022. I was in my second year of college. My friends and I, 6 of us, decided to rent a cabin in South Carolina for a few days. We just wanted to get away from everything. No school, no stress, no phones. It was supposed to be a simple, quiet trip, drinking too much, blasting music, and maybe making some stories to laugh about later. There were 4 guys, me, Matt, Chris, and Tyler, and 2 girls, Jess and Sarah. We'd all been tight since freshman year. The cabin we picked was ridiculously cheap for how big it was. 2 stories, a wraparound porch, 2 bathrooms, and it sat on private land near a lake. But it was way out there. No towns for miles, just endless forest all around. The owner of the cabin had a thick accent and seemed a little off when we spoke on the phone. He just warned us, don't wander too deep into the woods. There's some old stuff back there. Wells, busted fences, snakes. You don't want to get turned around. We all laughed it off. Thought he was just trying to add some spooky southern charm to the trip. No one took it seriously. But when we finally got there, the whole vibe changed. The drive felt endless. Our GPS gave out about an hour before we arrived. The last stretch was just dirt and gravel, barely wide enough for 1 car. The trees grew thicker and darker the closer we got. When we pulled up to the cabin, everyone went quiet. It wasn't at all like the pictures. The place looked older, worn down, almost forgotten. The windows were thick with dust, and some of the shutters hung loosely, barely clinging by old, rusty hinges. A strange, faint smell hung in the air. Like old garbage mixed with wet, rotting wood. We tried to laugh it off, saying it just added character. We unloaded, grabbed our rooms, and started drinking around 7 p.m. The first night was fun. We grilled outside, blasted music from a Bluetooth speaker, and played cards under the stars. But by 11 o'clock, the cold settled in, and we moved inside. That's when I noticed something else. The woods weren't just dark. They were black. Not the kind of dark you get at night, something deeper. The porch light barely lit the ground a few feet from the door. The trees felt like they were closing in, thick and heavy, swallowing up all light and sound. No bugs buzzing. No wind rustling the leaves. Just a suffocating, eerie silence. We all crashed by 2 a.m., but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. I had one of the rooms on the ground floor, right next to the kitchen. It was small, just a bed and a window that faced the woods. At around 4:15 a.m., I woke up. No reason, just suddenly wide awake, like someone had poked me. I lay there for a moment, heart pounding, when I heard it, tap, tap, tap. At first, I thought it was the heater or maybe something mechanical. But the tapping came again, steady, slow, soft. It wasn't metallic or mechanical. It sounded like fingers, tapping gently on the glass. I looked up at the window. There he was. A man pressed right up against the glass. His face almost touching it. Pale skin. Wild, tangled hair. No shirt. Just staring. His mouth hung slightly open, like he was breathing through it. His eyes were wide and unblinking. He didn't move. He just stood there, tapping softly, slowly, like he was teasing me. I felt frozen, like my body locked in place. Then the tapping quickened. I whispered for Matt, who was sleeping on the couch just outside my room. I said his name again, louder this time. He woke up groggy and asked what was wrong. I just pointed. He looked over and saw the man. Matt jumped up so fast he knocked over the coffee table. That must have scared the guy off because by the time Matt turned the porch light on and ran outside, he was gone. We all got up. The girls were terrified. Tyler tried to brush it off, saying it was probably some drunk local messing with us. Chris suggested maybe it was a hunter who got lost. But I knew it was that man watching me. He wasn't lost. We blocked all the doors, pushed the couch in front of the big living room window, and took turns staying awake for hours. Nothing else happened that night. The next morning, we went outside. There were footprints. Bare human footprints. They circled the entire cabin, stopping at every window, like someone was trying to find a way inside. The footprints stopped at every window. Every single one. Even the tiny one above the upstairs shower. That should have been our warning. We should have left. But we didn't. We were dumb. Stubborn. We stayed. Night 2 started just like the first. Drinks, music, the fire pit crackling. But the energy was different. Everyone kept glancing toward the woods, like they expected something to step out. Jess didn't drink. Chris kept his hunting knife strapped to his belt. When we finally went inside, we locked every window and double-checked every door. Around 3:30 a.m., Matt got up to get water from the kitchen. He stopped in the hallway and called my name. I got up, heart thudding. There he was. The same man from before. Only this time, he was inside. Naked. His back faced us. Long, raw-looking scratches covered his skin, angry and fresh. He stood in front of the fridge, staring at it like it was something alien. His body swayed slowly, rocking back and forth on his feet. Matt didn't say a word. He just backed away slowly. We gathered silently at the hallway entrance. I gripped a pocket knife. Sarah held a fire poker. Chris grabbed a broken chair leg he'd snapped earlier, trying to be funny. We flicked on the light. The man was gone. But the back door stood wide open. No signs of forced entry. No broken locks. Just open. We didn't wait. 20 minutes later, we packed only the essentials, wallets, keys, phones, and left. No one argued. We drove through the thick woods until we found enough signal to call the sheriff. When we met the deputy at a diner off the highway, he didn't look surprised. He asked if anyone was hurt. Then said, "Yeah, we've had some trouble with folks squatting up in those woods. People not always right in the head." We tried to explain it wasn't just some homeless guy. This man had watched us. Came back 2 nights in a row. And somehow got inside. The deputy just nodded, like he'd heard it all before. When we mentioned the owner, his face shifted. Like he knew more than he said. The rental listing vanished a few days later. Wiped clean from every website. We never got answers. Never got a call back. Never got our deposit. But that face, the way he stared at me through the window. I still see it sometimes. When I wake up in the dead of night. We don't talk about that trip much anymore. And as far as I know, none of us have been back to South Carolina since.